Texas teachers and librarians may soon receive a pay raise if a Senate bill is passed by the House. An anthropology class spends their time restoring a cemetery in Edinburg. The Carrizo Comecrudo tribe chairman speaks out to students on protecting land from the border wall, and the philosophy department presents a discussion about death and grief off campus. Plus, our spotlight of the month features Dr. Jose Villarreal, the coordinator of a conference taking place at UTRGV in support of migrant families and human rights. We have all this and more. UTRGV TV starts right now.
Thank you for joining us in this week's UTRGV TV edition. I'm Marisol Villarreal. For this week's top story, Texas teachers and librarians may soon receive a pay raise of several $1,000s if a Senate bill is passed by the House. Our reporter Rocio Villalobos brings us the story.
The Texas Senate unanimously passed Senate Bill 3, which would raise the annual salaries of full-time public school teachers and librarians by $5,000.
Most people are not in it for the salary. They're in it because they love to teach.
Texas teachers earn a salary of $7,000 below the national average pay for teaching, and Gonzalez says she believes the bill would help educators cover their expenses, including increased pensions by some school districts.
A lot of us haven't seen an increase for some time, especially those of us that are over 20 years of experience. The ladder kind of stops, and we don't get very much of an increase. It's not even cost of living.
Since the Edinburg chapter of the American Federation of Teachers was established 11 years ago, it has grown to around 400 members, including teachers, bus drivers, security guards, and other occupations employed by schools.
We're able to advocate for our members at the local level. There's a lot more power. We have the resources to go ahead and talk to the administration, to talk to the community, to be actively engaged.
Governor Greg Abbott declared teacher pay an emergency item in a State of the State address in February. Senate Bill 3 would cost the state $4 billion over the next 2 years. The House has since referred the bill to the Department of Education for review, and in order to be officially signed into law by the governor, the House must also agree upon the Senate proposed bill. Reporting in the studio for UTRGV TV, I'm Rocio Villalobos.
An anthropology course spends their class time restoring a cemetery in Edinburg. Our chief reporter Nathaniel Puente has more.
Most classes involve studying for tests and writing essays. One anthropology class drops the typical classwork and instead is preserving a cemetery here in Edinburg.
On an average day, the Hidalgo Public Cemetery is lonely, quiet, and eroded. Every Friday, however, an anthropology class takes place with the goal of cleaning and preserving the cemetery.
So the work that the class is doing is trying.
Dr. Sarah Rowe guides the class as they label unmarked graves, map the area, and set up an online database for the public to see.
So this is actually the third semester of the class, but we've inventoried over 1,000 graves. We've identified close to 50 unmarked graves.
The Hidalgo Public Cemetery operated from 1913 to the mid-1990s. The cemetery's eroded state is a result of years of abandonment. Across the 1,000 graves present are stories just waiting to be told.
Well, every single person here has a story that connects them to the community. And if we forget about the people that are buried there, we lose all of those connections.
Although many of the graves are tattered and dismantled, their stories are nonetheless important. Dr. Rowe's anthropology course hopes to give every grave its proper care. Reporting for UTRGV TV from Edinburgh, I'm Nathaniel Puente.
Last week, the Center for Mexican American Studies invited tribal chairman of the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe of Texas, Juan Mancias. He discussed the history of their tribe in the Rio Grande Valley and their current efforts to protect indigenous land against the border wall to several students in attendance.
Because we have people on both sides of that river and we're killing ourselves because we won't stand up for it. Nobody's willing to make that sacrifice. I just want to leave you with that, because I'm not here to take over anybody's land. I'm here because the land owns me, and that river owns me.
Mancias explained how the wall, the proposed gas pipeline going through the port of Brownsville, and other projects could harm the land. He encouraged students to ask questions and make their voice heard to state representatives. The Philosophy Department presents a Death Cafe, a philosophical discussion about death and grief with cake. I went out to visit the coffee house that hosted the event.
Hi, hello everybody. This is really lovely that there are so many people here and that you're all eager to discuss death.
A Death Cafe, one of the first of its kind held at the Luna Coffee House in McAllen, led by Dr. Michael Butler and guest speaker Catherine Fullerton, reached into the hearts of audience members with one question: how do they deal with grief? Catherine Fullerton is a graduate student from Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. She began by saying she is not a professional grieving counselor, but that she was there to lead the discussion. She explained her own personal experience with death from when her father passed away. One of the points she made during the event was that the way people grieve may vary depending on their socioeconomic group.
Some of us may feel that we have to grieve in a certain way, or that we don't have space to grieve in the way that we would need or we would like, because we feel pressures to get back to work or to get back to being productive.
Fullerton goes on to say that people may believe grieving is something that they have to do in their personal time, but she argues that grief knows no borders.
Grief doesn't obey borders like that. It resists all of our efforts to corral it into a certain part of our life. And part of what that means is that a way of dealing with grief in a healthy and productive way might be to just take a lot of time off to deal with those feelings, either by yourself or in your relationships or in your social groups.
Though there are no right or wrong ways to deal with grief, Fullerton and Butler say that talking about it with others in death cafes, with friends, or taking the time to reflect on a loved one's death individually is key for transforming oneself in a positive way.
When we bring up death, it's something we're not supposed to talk about, or there are very specific places where you're supposed to talk about it, and those are things like funerals or celebrations of life or those sorts of things that we talked about. And then there's a certain way that you're supposed to talk about death, right? And so the idea of the Death Cafe, I think, is to make a space where you can talk about death in any old way.
But at the end of the day, I think we all have our own ways of dealing with grief, and working those through with another person is more important than figuring out the right or the wrong way to do that.
If you would like to start up your own Death Cafe, simply reach out to any coffee shop and begin planning. Death Cafes follow no agenda. In McAllen, Marisol Villarreal reporting for UTRGV-TV.
And here's this week's sports highlights with our station manager, Ileana Luna.
On this week's sports highlights, we've got men's tennis, women's track and field, and baseball all on the rundown for you. First up, men's tennis had a match up against Kansas City Saturday, March 30th. The match was tied 3-3 between UTRGV senior Kaufman and UMKC Stride, but it was in court 2 when playing singles that Stride clinched the win when Kaufman fell in the second set 1-6. The third set was actually tied between the men at Game 6, forcing a tiebreaker which UMKC took the last 7 points. UTRGV's juniors Sardin and Smith got the win with a 6-3 score over in Court 3 playing doubles. Senior Kaufman and freshman Hudgins also took a win on Court 2 playing doubles, earning a 6-4 victory in that match. UMKC then answered back on Courts 1 and 3 in singles and carried it out to Court 4 in the final. Next, women's track and field wraps up their Texas relays in Austin Saturday, March 30th. The girls visited the capital city to enter the 92nd annual Clyde Littlefield Texas Relays. UTRGV senior Diamond Thomas recorded a discus throw of 50.38 meters. Thomas' score went down as the third best in the program's history and finished in 6th place for that category. Now in the 4x800 meter dash relay, girls Kyra, Sierra, Monica, and Dorcas recorded a time of 9 minutes and 22 seconds, finishing in 7th place. Last but not least, Vaquero baseball faced University of Northern Colorado Saturday, March 30th. Grad student Connor Dodson finished with a one-hit shutout on the 5th inning, leading to a 10-0 victory. Junior Conrado Diaz took out UNC's Jake Gitter when trying to steal second. Base runners now in the 6th inning, UTRGV's Quinn Ayers struck out, but Lucas Allen walked when Ayers hit on a wild pitch. Junior Christian Sepulveda hit a home run, his second of the season, and later drove the men to the next inning with a grounder. The men scored 4 runs in the 5th inning with a grounder, bases loaded, and a walk, making the score 3-0. Still in the 5th, 4 more runs were made by Tyler Torres, Elijah Alexander, Jacob Flores, and Jacob Hirsch. The men added 3 more runs in the 6th, and Dodson finished with 9 strikeouts in a career-high 7 innings. Vaquero took the lead 10-0 on that one. That does it for this week's sports highlights, but to keep up to date on full schedules and tickets, you can visit goutrgv.com for the latest. Reporting for sports, Ileana Luna.
Here's this week's police reports released to us this past week by UTRGV PD. On March 25th, officers were dispatched to the bus stop near the 1400 block of West University Drive in Edinburg in reference to a male subject asleep on the ground. He was jailed in the Edinburg City Jail. On March 26, officers were dispatched to the covered walkway area near the math and general classroom building in reference to a male having exposed his genital area to a female student. Officers attempted to locate the unidentified male, but to no avail. Case under investigation. On March 27th, a female student reported being sexually assaulted sometime in the fall of 2018 in her dorm on the Edinburgh campus at Unity Hall. The female student did not want to provide additional information on the incident. The non-affiliated male suspect was an ex-boyfriend to the female student. The female student has not provided the identity nor the description of the suspect at this time. The victim is participating in the pseudonym program and no further information will be released at this time. This case has been turned over to the Criminal Investigation Division. Anyone with information pertaining to this or other incidents is encouraged to contact the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley Police Department at 956-882-4911 or police at utrgv.edu. For April's Spotlight of the Month, our assistant station manager sat down with community activist and sociology professor Dr. Jose Villarreal.
Hello, welcome back to another Spotlight of the Month, and for this Spotlight, we've invited Dr. Jose Villarreal. He's a sociology professor. He has 20 years of teaching experience. He has a master's in sociology from the University of Texas A&M, and he received his PhD in Chicano and Latino Studies from Michigan State University. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Dr. Villarreal. So we brought you in, first of all, because of this conference that he developed. It's called Defending Migrant Families and Human Rights. So first of all, could you tell us more about the conference and what brought you to develop?
The idea of the conference came about as the suffering that migrant families are enduring at this time, and also the fact that the conservative media is showing one viewpoint. And so I came to the conclusion that the community, the university, the students, the faculty, we need to improve our knowledge of why and how and why these people are suffering and their plight here to the United States. And so we need more information, and we need to also stimulate interest in the plight of migrants so that perhaps we can have a more sensitive, a more humanitarian outlook on the whole situation of migration.
Right, and so we know that you've invited several speakers. Could you mention some of them and just tell us more about how this conference is going to be carried out? Because I know it is from 9 to 5, so it's going to be an all-day event.
Yes, it's scheduled to be an all-day event. We're hoping that last-minute cancellations don't take effect, but I've invited people that are at the forefront of the migration issue or defending migrant families, and several community organizations and leaders that represent these organizations have been invited. Included are Lupe, which are out of San Juan, and they're involved with litigation issues and defending migrants. I've invited 2 consulates from Central America, and they've agreed. They have a very rigorous schedule, but they said they were going to try to be here. I hope that they will be here. A consulate from Honduras, the consulate from Guatemala, and one of the persons who was at the forefront of defending migrants, of course, is Catholic Charities, run by under the leadership of Sister Norma Pimentel, inclusive Mr. Eddie Canales, who runs the South Texas Human Rights Center out of Falfurrias, and he's in charge of tracking down missing migrants and also laying water in the ranches in that area. I've also invited Elisa Broyaga, an immigration attorney, and also Mr. De Leon, Neptali De Leon, who's an author, a poet, and a muralist, and he also has insight into the suffering of migrant families and some other activists in the community who are involved with this migration issue.
Okay, and so we have a different range of panelists, correct? Right. And so what exactly, how is it going to be performed throughout the day? How are they going to be speaking on these topics?
The panelists will have about 30 minutes to address the students, the faculty, and community. And then after 30 minutes, their session will be opened up for questions. And so each panelist, each presenter will go 30 minutes, a little bit beyond, depending on the issues and clarifications that they have to do. And then they'll open it up for questions and answers.
Okay, so this is open to anybody can go in?
Yes, of course. We're encouraging especially the students, the faculty, and the community. So we've put up some flyers in the community in McAllen and Edinburg so that the community is also involved to come, because we want to make sure that the university always keeps ties with the community. This is a tradition of Texas A&M Edinburg. I'm at University of Texas, and I am an alumni of Pan American University. And so we've always had this close relationship with the community, and we want to keep up that tradition.
And we thank you for that. And so for this conference, what do you hope for those that go in and talk to these panelists? What do you hope the audience gets out of this conference?
Well, for one, an increase in the knowledge of migration. I think that the university is ready for more courses on migration and globalization, and to be a little bit more open-minded towards the people from Central America who are, in essence, experiencing forced migrations. And lots of times we don't evaluate these migrations as forced migrations, just merely as illegal people coming over and trying to get asylum.
Okay. Well, we thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to repeat the information again. This is the conference on defending migrant families and human rights. It will be held on April 3rd from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. here on the Edinburg campus in Health Affairs Building West 1.404. And of course, like he said, this is open to the public. Faculty, students can attend this event. I don't know if you would like to add anything else.
We're hoping also to stir interest and so that everyone will participate in the conference. Students are free to ask questions, and this is in the question and answer period will be sort of like a roundtable discussion, and everyone should take part in this discussion so that we can get a first-hand look from these experts who are working with migrant families and see the work that they're doing.
Right. This is like a once-a-time thing. It's really hard to get in touch with these people, especially right now. So we thank you so much for making this conference, and hopefully everything goes as planned.
Right.
Thank you again for being here and taking your time to be with us today.
And thank you, University of Texas TV.
This is our Spotlight of the Month.
That's all we have for you today, but remember, if you have a story you would like for us to know about or know someone who is making an impact on campus or in the community, you can contact us through our social media or email us at utrgvtv@gmail.com. We have community and UTRGV news for you every week. See you next time.